Hi everyone, it's Michael, and it is time for the September 2018 Orchid Collection update. Now, I feel so naked and quite out of sorts with myself because I have no facial hair to hide behind. I actually just received a microneedling treatment, which I'm spotlighting on my other YouTube channel, which is the Bearded Beauty Bible. I don't know if I've ever explained this to you guys. I work in the beauty industry, that's my job, that's why I'm traveling all the time. So my other YouTube, my personal Instagram, all of that focuses around lifestyle, beauty, and wellness. So if you have any interest in checking that out, I'll go ahead and link all of that stuff below. But that's why I look like an infant, if you were wondering. So let's talk about what I was doing with my orchids this month. I was continuing to flush with tap water, but I have decided quite definitively that I've had it. I've already reached out for some quotes for reverse osmosis installation. It's just not working. And the turning point for me is, I mean, the plants are doing fine, but I know they could be doing better. But the real turning point for me was the realization that I don't even like the water. I don't use the zero water because the filters last so briefly. They just get inundated with that mineral content and just stop working. So it's very expensive, it's very inefficient. I got one of those pure water filters that you attach right onto the faucet, and that still tastes like minerals. I mean, it takes out like lead and things that are poisonous, but I can still taste the significant amount of mineral content in the water. And it's weird because I tested the TDS, so the starting point is usually around 450, and when it comes out of the pure faucet thing, it comes out at like 410, so it's barely taking anything out. So I've been struggling to stay hydrated because I hate our water so much. And then when it occurred to me, like, okay, if you don't even like the water, why do you think that these orchids, which are super, super sensitive and less adaptable and have no say in the matter, do you think they like it? So that's kind of where I'm headed, and that's kind of the logic behind it. So I am going to be switching to using reverse osmosis water very, very soon, and I will keep you posted on that full process. Independent of that, I had my very first Instagram live to kind of have a question and answer forum. It was so lovely. There wasn't a huge turnout, but the people who were there were super engaged, so supportive and lovely. So I was originally planning on doing that once a month to kind of offer some interface with everybody, but since there wasn't a huge outcry for it, I think I'll probably do that maybe once every quarter, maybe once every 6 months, I don't know. I'll kind of feel it out based off of the needs and the intensity with which I'm being asked questions. But thank you to everyone who came. So now, without further lead-in, let's go ahead and jump in and talk through all of the plants one by one.
All right, you guys. So today's gonna be a little bit uncommon because I'm gonna go through every single orchid in the collection. That's just because today is the day that I happened to pull all the orchids down to flush every single one. So ordinarily I'd only pick the ones that something really interesting or different is happening with, but we can go through every single one for this update. So we'll start with number one. And number one is a good example of a big theme for this entire video, which is going to be that orchids refuse to be contained, especially my Phalaenopsis types. Just look at it go, you guys. It's putting out this aerial root that's just going crazy. It is just beginning to swirl the entire container because the roots just keep branching off of one another, which is really wonderful. So I'm curious to see what happens with this. That basal Keiki is still continuing to develop into almost the same size plant as the mother plant. So I'm just waiting for it to get a little bit better established, but I'm also kind of afraid to divide it because my divisions have not gone quite to plan. So to illustrate that point, we're gonna jump from number one to number 3 in the collection. So this is my Wilsonara, Aloha Sparks Halloween. And you can see, I'm actually running a bit of an experiment. On this one, I have some sphagnum moss at the top. On this one, I do not. I'm just kind of watching to see which one accelerates faster and which one does better. But if I take you in on the root system, you can see it's very, very brittle. All of the old root system was quite damaged in the division. So I really thought that I was gonna be just fine hacking away at this with a big butcher knife, and that didn't quite work out. I will link the video below where I did that. But I think in the future, I'm definitely gonna use shears of some kind to make one swift cut because I think it definitely has impacted the root systems. They are much more fragile and now they really have to regenerate. So the onus of really carrying this plant is gonna fall on these new growths to put down a brand new root system. So we will see what that's like. Now also, I can always tell that the root system isn't working great because of this mineral buildup right at the top, especially because of the addition of sphagnum moss as well. It's very, very legible. And I know you might be thinking that's mold, and it is mold on a couple of them, but for this, it's definitely mineral buildup. And you can tell when you water it, the mineral content just kind of floats to the top and hovers. It's not quite as fluffy as mold. So very, very peculiar. Now on to number 4, nothing is really happening with number 4. This one was the one that accidentally divided itself because the shelf it was on collapsed and then the container shattered and it broke into 2 pieces. So this one is finally putting out a fourth pseudobulb, so I'm really curious to see if this one is going to give me a flower spike this year, but we will just keep our eyes on that. Now we're gonna move over to number 7. This one is another one that nothing is really happening, although maybe something is, because it just occurred to me, look how big and tall this new growth is on it. It is really just like a very, very sizable difference to its old growths. So this one is just continuing on. We are approaching the period of time where I'm going to be slowly easing this into a winter dormancy. I don't know how differently that's gonna go in Los Angeles, but we will find out. I totally forgot to grab this one when I was laying everything out in numeric order, but this is number 8. This is my Banfieldara Mystic Maze. And just look at how beautifully that new growth is coming in. It is coming in fast. It is coming in super, super healthy. And the interesting thing about this is a really prime example of a new growth supporting the entire transition of a plant. So you can see, if I take you in here, the difference between, this is the old existing root system. You can see it's kind of like graying. It's not super viable. I mean, it's processing water, but it's not doing a great job of it. But there's a clear distinction between those roots and the newer roots that are coming in as a product of that new growth. And you can tell, look at that color. It's that vivid green, yellowy root. So that is a product of the new growth. So the new growth is creating an entirely brand new root system that'll support the entire plant. And this particular plant really, really excels at that. So that is something really interesting happening here. Now on to number 9. This is the Keiki I took from my mom's Phalaenopsis, and I am so excited. I thought it was going to die, but again, refusing to be contained. It's growing up with that beautiful aerial root. But beyond that, this addition of sphagnum moss on the top layer has really been instrumental, because can you see that little new root peeking through? This has done nothing for so long, and now it really is starting to gain some momentum. So I am just watching this with hope and optimism, and eagerly anticipating when it really hits a stride. Now we're gonna jump from number, I have these backwards. We're gonna jump from number 9 to number 11. So this is my Ox Lottery Phalaenopsis. And this one is also just living its best life. It is putting down root after root, new leaf after new leaf. And again, continuing that theme of refusing to be contained, look at that giant aerial root. All of my Phalaenopsis are doing this here. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's because the environment inside the container is terrible. But Phalaenopsis do this no matter what. So, I mean, I'm not saying that the environment inside of the grow container is perfect, but I'm saying that they all do this. So now that I've had my phals for a while, they are all starting to go crazy like this. And I kind of think it's wonderful. It just makes me feel like they are creating their own jungle, and they will never stop reaching for earth, which is kind of beautiful and poetic. So we'll move from number 11 on to number 12. This is my Mendenhall Hilda's Psychopsis, and this one has just maddeningly done nothing for me. The biggest distinction after moving from Colorado to LA is that the modeling on the leaves is so vivid, because it's getting a lot more light here, but I am just waiting and waiting for it to put out that flower spike. I'm gonna start looking into some literature about what exactly the circumstances need to be for this to bloom. It should generally receive Oncidium care, and that's exactly what it's getting, but I'm wondering if it needs that top layer of sphagnum moss. I'm wondering if there's something I'm missing from this equation. Now we're gonna move on to number 13. This is my last standing Phragmipedium, and this one is actually doing quite well. I have it in my western facing exposure. It's getting a lot of light. It seems to be doing just fine. But again, I feel so uncertain about what exactly this plant requires from me and this grow method. So I am just continuing to read up. I'm reading a lot of conflicting perspectives on how to take care of these. In semi-hydroponics, a lot of people say that some of them do really well. A lot of people say that some of them don't. But I am just trying to see exactly how this one will do. But for now, it seems to be hanging in there. Now on to number 16 in the collection. This might just be my pride and joy of the moment. This is my Dapper Dots Nicolasa Tavares hybrid Catasetum. And just look at it, you guys. It is just killing the game, living its best life. I'm gonna flip this one around. I gotta be careful. But look how big the new growths are compared to the last year's growths. Last year's very front. The one that I originally purchased it with is in the dead middle. And look at how big those pseudobulbs are, you guys. It is just killing it. So I'm really pleased with this one. I keep rotating it because I don't like when it tilts. Oops, you can't. I don't like when it tilts this way versus that way. I'm always trying to get it to grow straight up. But again, orchids refuse to be contained, so that I'm sure is a very futile and meaningless effort on my part. So I'm probably just gonna stop doing that, but for now it seems to be working, keeping them growing perfectly upright. Now let's move on to number 17 in the collection. This is my Ascocenda Betty May Steele Carmela. And this one is doing, this one has been quite confusing in general. It didn't do much of anything for me ever in Colorado, and it's just now putting out new leaves, which is really great. And the roots are continuing to branch off, but I feel like this one has never quite stopped acclimating to semi-hydroponics. So again, there may come a time where I take this out of semi-hydro just because I don't know if it's the perfect grow method for this plant. I know classically it's not preferred, but I'm just curious to see if it can adapt and make it work. I really, really just want to know if that's a possibility. Now we are on to number 18 in the collection. And you guys, this is my Zygopetalum, and every time I interact with this plant, I just feel just like Ryan Gosling in The Notebook. I'm like, what do you want? What do you want? I just truly don't understand. It is putting out these very feeble looking new growths here and here. It has lost all but 2 of its leaves. The pseudobulbs are desiccated. The addition of sphagnum moss on the top layer seems to be helping, but not anything super significant. So realistically, I just don't know what the hell's going on with this guy, but I'm just gonna continue to watch him. And when I say watch him, I mean it's on the watch list. There's a few orchids that I will show you today that are just sources of concern for me, and this one is definitely on the watch list, or most likely to be in the next In Loving Memory video. I hate that perspective, and I really want to be more optimistic about it, but this one has just done so little for so long that I'm just like, man, I don't even know what's going on with you. Now, on to number 19. This is my Bulbophyllum Fascinator, and you can see this one has a lot of mineral buildup at the top. I'm gonna flush more regularly with the ones that I see this. I'm also going to give them more regular watering with just plain distilled as opposed to the nutrient solution that I use generally for all the other plants. Now, here is its sibling. This is, oh, and I just noticed that's blackening. Huh, didn't realize that before. So this is the Bulbophyllum Ambrosia. This one has done nothing for quite some time. Maybe this one could use a top dressing of sphagnum moss as well. I also think that this one doesn't like to have as much nutrient solution as it's been getting. So I think that might be accounting for a little bit of this burn. But who knows? We'll find out. So now on to number 21 in the collection. This is my Paphiopedilum Pinocchio Laui hybrid. And this one has been doing awesome, you guys. And it's weird because it looks like it's doing badly because it has that yellow streak on the bottom leaf. It is just the natural progression of their growth pattern. Ever since I added the top layer of sphagnum moss to this one, it has been doing phenomenal. And just as a point of reference, you can see this one has no mineral buildup. It's using all of the nutrients I'm giving it, whereas this one has plenty of it. Now, here's the interesting thing. If I take you down, the root system really for the first time is beginning to accelerate. You can see, look at that. Look at the new roots there. It really is just starting to put out a established root system. And even if I take you into the top, you can see that it really enjoys having that top layer of sphagnum moss because it is putting new roots out directly into it. Let me see if I can find the spot. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's putting out for the first time right at the top as opposed to inside of the container. It's putting out a bunch of new little roots, which I think is just wonderful and is a good indicator that it enjoys this method of growing. Now we will move on to number 23. This is my Maxillaria tenafolia. This one has been doing awesome. Look at that root system go. It is super pleased. It is happy, it is healthy, it has 1,000,001 new growths. It is in a western facing exposure at the moment and just loving it. I am just thrilled to see that this one has gained momentum, and I do think it will bloom for me next season. I just think that it really had to fully adapt to semi-hydro first, and there it is. Now onto my Miltonia Sunset. You guys, I am so excited. I was really nervous about this one for a while because it kept like, I don't know, dropping leaves and yellowing here and there. And you can even see like on the new growths that were growing before I left Colorado, those ones started to yellow and dry up at the tips. And I just wasn't sure what was going on. But then it blessed me with, look how many new growths it has. It's got one there, it's got 2 there, it's got another one down there. You can see it tried to put out one here and it's kind of strangling itself up against the glass, which I know I probably need to repop it, I just haven't. But it even has a new one coming in right down there. So this one is just, it appears to finally really be hitting a stride in Los Angeles, so that is great news. So picking back up with number 25 in the collection, this is my Epidendrum Green Hornet. This was the subject of my bloom profile recently. I will link that video below. This one is just doing awesome. It has a brand new growth coming in right under here. The flower spike that bloomed starting in August is just now beginning to drop its blooms, but I still have all of these blooms, and I actually suspect that this guy, you can see the sheath right there, it's probably gonna give me a bloom soon, and same with the other one right in here. So this one is doing phenomenally well. Also, this one here, number 26 in the collection, this is my Aloha Stellar. I'm so excited. It's a first time bloomer, and it has given me 2 big, beautiful spikes. You can see it's like super close to actually opening. This one's gonna be stunning. I can't wait to be doing a bloom profile on this. So this one is also doing really well and has responded incredibly to having a top layer of sphagnum moss. Everybody knows number 28. This is my Cattleya Purple Blue Hawaii. It's a beast. And again, with the theme of not being contained, look at those roots. It just is looking for tree. It's looking for earth. It's looking for something natural. So you go on, girl. You keep reaching. This is the second set of blooms it's given me. It started blooming a while back. And the blooms are finally beginning to fade. So this is just doing phenomenal. I'm still grappling with whether or not I want to divide or if I want to just keep growing it into a larger and larger species size. But I can't help but think about like, okay, well, what happens if I ever have to move? Like, what am I gonna do with a giant Cattleya? So I don't know, I'm still figuring it out. Now on to number 29 in the collection. 29 is actually a really great illustration of the difference between mold and nutrient solution. So if I take you in closer here, you can see some of the old roots that are starting to die back. And what that is, you can tell the texture of what that white stuff is. It's kind of thick. It's almost like cotton wrapped around the organic material. Now, when we're looking at mineral buildup, it almost looks like a sprinkling of like powdered sugar. Actually, here, I'll show you some right here. So you can see it almost looks like a sprinkle of powdered sugar, whereas mold actually looks like a more physical, solid entity. So this one has some decay, but I'm also not panicked about it because mold is nature's way of resolving that decaying matter. So it will eventually subside when the rotting material is gone out of the equation and has been properly metabolized and processed by other biological things. So this is number 29. It hasn't done much of anything, but I will say, oh, I'm sorry, this is the Eulafia petersi. I will say that it's been drinking down its water reservoir a lot more readily ever since I placed this top layer of sphagnum moss. It's interesting because it's a desert orchid, so I wouldn't imagine that it needed sphagnum moss. But what I think it's doing is it's helping to facilitate that wicking process because it is such a dry grower, so that sphagnum moss is what's pulling the moisture upward and allowing it to actually adapt to semi-hydroponics. So I think this guy is doing well, and I think next year it'll give me a more significant growth. And here is one more that is being filmed out of sequence. I just forgot to put it in the lineup. But this is number 31. This is my Oncidium Pacific Wild Willy Bingo. And what's interesting about this guy is you can see it has a new growth coming in. It's doing quite well. And it's putting down a new root system once again as it adapts from Colorado to California. But the interesting thing is this one had a record-breaking turnaround time for me from the time that I potted it in semi-hydroponics to the time it rebloomed for me. It is not following that trajectory here, and I think that is because it just does not have as much light. So one of the things that prevents me from filming my care videos for these is I really want to experiment with the boundaries and see like what's the lowest light it can take before it'll rebloom, what's the highest light it can take before it burns. So last year I put this one directly in an eastern facing exposure and it gave me another flower spike so fast. So this year I've had it with no direct sunlight up on this ledge. It still gets very bright indirect light, but you can see that the development of this new growth has been really slowed by it. So that's the biggest takeaway from number 31. Now on to number 33. This is my Dendrobium tangerinum, and it's just continuing to do really well, you guys. It has that beautiful new growth. The new growth has put down a really significant amount of new roots. I'll show you over on this side. So you can see it's reaching, it's getting comfortable, and I think it's going to be a much more established plant in the months to come. But you can also see it has this little foreign invader that is putting down roots. I'm just watching it. I'll probably weed it out of there sometime soon, but as I've discovered time and time again, sometimes these little plants act as a nice collaborator, and they are very symbiotic in terms of how the plant develops. So I'm just watching it and making sure it doesn't become problematic. Now we're gonna go from number 33 to 34. This one is so exciting to me, and I'm not really sure what is going on. This is my Ludicea discolor. You can see it's putting out a new leaf. It's doing really well. It's got that beautiful velvety texture. But look, it's putting out new arms in every which direction now. So it's got one coming in there. It's got another one there. It's got one coming in inside of the container. Look at that, you guys. And this is the one that happens to have it growing inside of the glass as well. So I think it was trying to figure out its boundaries, but it tried to put out an entirely new growth inside of the container. Oh, and it's doing it, let me focus on this. It's doing it there too. It's trying to put out another one. So this one just wants to go in every which direction, and I think that's really positive. I just need to figure out what exactly the best container is for it, because this is not gonna do much longer. On to number 35. This is another one that's definitely on the watch list. This is my Burgiara Nelly Eiler. It breaks my heart because this was doing so well for me in Colorado, but it was actually much easier for me to care for in Colorado because we experienced much cooler temperatures. So ever since we've been in LA, this one has just not quite done the same, and it just keeps losing bulb after bulb and leaf after leaf. So I'm just hoping for the best, but just keeping a watchful eye on this guy. On to number 36. This is my SVO Black Pearl. I'm so pleased. You guys, look how big it's gotten. It is so gorgeous. It is now starting to plump up and create the actual bulb. And this one I thought I was going to lose for a long time because I lost bulb after bulb after bulb on the original plant. And then I was only left with this guy back here, this little growth here. And it just gave me this really healthy new growth this year. So I'm super pleased. I hope this continues to develop. It's about 3 months behind my other Catasetum, so they are not on the same schedule, but it is really interesting to watch it develop and grow. I hope it gets super fat just like the other one. Now we're gonna jump from 36 to 39. This is another one on the watch list. This is my Zygopetalum Cynosure Bluebird. And you guys, it's just like the same thing. Like, what do you want? What are you doing? I don't understand you. The new growths continue to die back, which I understand is indicative of a lack of calcium. So they've been getting flushed regularly with tap water, which has plenty of calcium because the water's so hard in LA. It's not fixing it. It has plenty of mineral buildup, so it doesn't even appear to like the water content I'm giving it or the nutrient solution I'm giving it. So now I'm flushing back with distilled water. I just don't know what this plant wants. I don't know what's going on with it, and it's definitely on the watch list. Now we're going to go from number 39 to number 41. This is my Ganlin Golden Fowl. And it's just doing really awesome. And again, refusing to be contained. Look at those roots just growing straight upward. But it's living a very happy life. It's also putting out tons of new roots inside of the container. See it just creeping along the bottom. So this one's doing really well, and I look forward to the day it blooms for me. Now on to number 42 in the collection. This is my Spathoglottis Plicata. This is the one that had an incredible resurrection. I declared it dead and then it bounced right back. But again, it's just continuing to just grow and excel and be super happy. The root system inside of the container is doing really well. It is just putting down new root after new root and expanding everywhere, which is lovely. Now the interesting thing is that once I added the top layer of sphagnum moss, a lot of things started to mold, but I think that's totally fine because the plant is verdant, it's green, it's super happy. So I think whatever wasn't serving the plant is now rotting away. But overall, it's just doing phenomenally well. So I'm very pleased, and I'm excited to see what happens with this guy. On to number 43 in the collection. These two are actually both the product of my orchid flask experimentation. But this is my Encyclia tampensis. You guys, it is just continuing to do awesome. The layer of sphagnum moss has really encouraged its growth. It is getting curly, it's putting out new growths, it's got lots of new roots going everywhere. So this guy's doing awesome, I'm very pleased. And this is the Encyclia tampensis Epidendrum Magnoliae hybrid. And you can also see this one is also putting out some new growths. It's putting down a bunch of new roots, and it seems very happy now that it has sphagnum moss to support its growth. Now we're gonna jump from 44 onto 46. This is my Oncidium Twinkle. And this one is also doing really well. It's putting up a completely brand new growth there and another new growth there. This one drinks down its water reservoir really fast, so I may add in some sphagnum moss soon, but for right now it seems to be doing just fine. Now we're gonna go from 46 to 47. This is my Paphiopedilum hybrid, and it's quite confusing because it appears to be doing great, especially if I take you in here. You can see it has a completely brand new growth coming in. There's not any mineral buildup. It seems to really enjoy its grow method, but this one leaf just right here keeps dying back, and I've trimmed it. I've treated it with cinnamon a few times. I'm not sure why just that one is doing it, but the modeling is intact. Everything else appears to be good except for that one leaf, so I'm just not sure what that leaf doesn't like, but I'm trying to figure it out. So now on to number 48 in the collection. This is my Cymbidium Murasaki sinense, and it is just continuing to kill the game. Look at how beautiful that new growth is. All of these weird little symbiotic plants that are growing alongside of it. But if I take you into the container, the root system is just going nuts, you guys. Look at those big juicy white tips everywhere. It is really thriving all of a sudden. It struggled for a long time. The bulbs were super desiccated, but now it is just living its best life. So that's wonderful. Now on to number 49 in the collection. This is my Burtfield Eileen Miltoniopsis. I don't really have an observation on what's happening with this guy. So I know that this one is similar to the Nellie Eiler in terms of the kind of culture it prefers. It likes cooler temperatures, but it did start to give me 2 new growths. You can see one in the dead center here is still growing, but one of the leaves died back as soon as it got a little bit more developed. So I'm not sure why that happened, but there is also another new growth coming in right in here. And I'm curious to see what will happen to this one. So, I mean, that's usually the indicator. The plant itself looks relatively healthy, but if the new growths aren't able to excel, they're not going to be able to put down a root system, and the root system will not be able to support the rest of the plant. So even though this one looks good, I would say it's still on the watch list. I'm not quite sure what will happen with this guy. Now we're gonna skip to number 51. This is my wedding day Phalaenopsis. And again, in maintaining that theme of not being able to be contained, look at the roots. It's just going everywhere. It's growing up, it's growing down. It does not want to be tamed. So this guy is doing phenomenally well. It's just growing everywhere, you guys. So I'm really pleased with how quickly this has put down a new root system. I'm really pleased with how quickly it seems to have embraced semi-hydroponics. And even look at the size of the new leaf growth. Usually when it's adapting to semi-hydroponics, the new leaves are super, super stunted and you can see a distinct difference in size. But this one is almost the same in size as all of the other leaf growth. So that's really, really wonderful. And this one is of course a representative of the 5 that I have up there. They are all doing the exact same. They're all very much synced up. If you're wondering what that is, you and me both. My husband is doing a project and God knows I just love his projects. And now we'll go on to number 42. This is my Renanthera colsum. This is the one I picked up in Honolulu. I wasn't sure how this one was going to do in semi-hydroponics, but it seems to be really liking it. It also seems to be unapologetic about putting out roots in every direction. It really wants to do its own thing. So you can see new roots are coming out everywhere. It also has a new leaf coming in the dead center. And this is actually what I was just talking about with the leaf being stunted when you first adapt it. So this was a new leaf and it kind of stopped growing when it got to here. So it's about half the size of the old leaf growths. So now in theory, the new leaf growth that's coming in will be slightly larger. And then with each new leaf growth, it'll get closer and closer to the original leaf size. And when it does reach the original leaf size, then we know it's fully adapted. So that is pretty much it, you guys. I hope this has given you a really detailed snapshot of the entire collection exactly as it is at the moment. Again, there's a lot of things on the watch list, and then I'm still learning a lot of lessons from those. So we will see how those things unfold. I will keep you fully posted. As always, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to click subscribe and have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah! Bye, guys.